The press briefing had just concluded when the incident unfolded. Karoline Leavitt, her composure unshaken, had been finalizing her remarks, offering crisp and precise answers to an attentive crowd. The atmosphere felt ordinary, almost restrained, until a voice sliced through the stillness like a dagger. "Miss Leavitt," the reporter started, their voice dripping with disdain, "don't you think that at only 27, you're a bit too green for a position of this weight? With all due respect, isn't this a role better filled by someone with more seasons behind them? Someone the American public can truly trust?" The question hung in the air, piercing and deliberate. Silence blanketed the room as heads swiveled toward the reporter. A younger man clutching a hefty notepad, exuding an aura of self-assured arrogance. His smirk widened as he rhythmically tapped his pen on the table, awaiting Caroline's reply. For a fleeting second, her steady facade wavered, just enough for those nearby to notice, but she swiftly regained control. Her lips curved into a courteous smile. She didn't answer right away, letting the quiet stretch, the suspense growing thick and heavy. Then from near the podium, a recognizable voice shattered the hush. "Is that what we're playing at now?" Donald Trump's tone rang out, solid and unimpressed. He leaned toward the microphone, his face hovering between amusement and disbelief. "We're grilling people for being young? Seriously? That's the game we're on?" The reporter squirmed slightly but held his ground. "Well, Mr. President, it's a fair point. Experience counts. Surely you'd agree someone with more time in the political arena might be a stronger fit." Trump raised a hand, halting the reporter mid-thought. "Hold it right there. First off, it's not a fair point. It's a weak one. I've seen plenty of weak points in my day to spot one a mile off." A ripple of laughter broke the strain in the room. Trump pressed on, his voice gaining an edge. "Second, don't act like you're worried about experience. You're not. You're worried she's someone you can't figure out, someone you can't steer." The reporter blinked, caught off guard by the bluntness. But Trump wasn't finished. "You know what's funny?" he said, motioning toward the reporter. "You never quiz the folks who've been haunting Washington for 20, 30, 40 years, gathering cobwebs and delivering zilch for Americans about their experience. Never crossed your mind to ask if their polished ties and nonstop meetings have earned them a thing, have you? Nah, you're fine with them squatting in their spots forever, yapping away while getting nothing done." The room stirred. A few reporters traded looks. Some even nodded faintly. Trump could split opinions, no doubt, but his words carried a raw honesty. "And here's the kicker," he said, edging closer to the mic, eyes locked on the reporter. "People like Karoline Leavitt are exactly what this nation craves. She's young. Congrats, you nailed that. But she's sharp. She's got fire. She's not tangled up in the muck. She's delivered more ideas, more action, more real outcomes than most of the experienced types you're penning odes to." He glanced briefly at Karoline, who sat poised, her expression a studied calm. "Karoline here, 27. I call that a strength. She's not in the old guard's clique. She hasn't spent decades cutting shady deals or selling out the public. She's achieved more by now than most manage in a lifetime." He paused, his voice deepening. "But you perch there acting like age is the only metric that counts. Why? Because she's not your version of a politician." Trump's tone surged, direct and unrelenting, as he fixed the reporter with a stare. "Do you even get what you're doing with questions like that? It's not journalism. It's not chasing truth. It's prejudice, pure and simple. She doesn't match your script, so you whip out the age jab. Real original." The reporter opened his mouth, but Trump lifted a finger, silencing him with ease. "Nope, don't bother. I've heard this garbage for years. You don't respect the voters who back her, who believe in her. You don't even respect her. All you want is to drag her down because she's not the politician you're used to. Well, tough luck. That's precisely why she's up here, and you're tossing out cheap shots. The room buzzed with whispers. A handful of reporters clapped before stopping themselves. Karoline stayed quiet, a mix of surprise and resolve in her eyes, though a slight smile tugged at her lips. It wasn't every day someone championed her with such fervor. Trump kept going. "You say age matters?" he challenged, pointing straight at the reporter. "Look at history. Some of the boldest leaders we've seen started young. Alexander the Great kicked off his empire at 20. Teddy Roosevelt, what was he up to in his 20s? Shaking up the system? And here's Karoline doing the same, pushing forward, stepping into the heat daily, while folks like you sit back and question her. And you know why you question her." He didn't wait for a reply. "Because she's not plugged into the worn-out, busted machine you've been shielding all this time." The reporter tried to cut in, his voice unsteady. "But Mr. President, we can't equate today's politics to—" "Oh, yes, we can," Trump shot back, his words crisp. "You're peddling this notion that only weathered politicians can hack it." "Weathered politicians," he scoffed, "like the ones who've saddled us with debt, wars, and empty promises. If you're asking me whether I'd pick Karoline's vision and grit over their experience, it's yes, every single time." Laughter and applause erupted. Karoline felt her pulse steady, the earlier heaviness lifting into something lighter. Trump's words washed over her, fierce and unapologetic. He wasn't just defending her credentials, he was rewriting what leadership could mean. "Here's the bottom line," Trump concluded, the room hanging on his every syllable. "Karoline is precisely what this country's starving for. Someone fresh, someone bold, someone with the guts to stand tall even when the odds are stacked against her." "Don't like it. Too bad. Get on board, because that's how momentum builds. That's how things shift." He leaned back, a faint grin breaking through. "And if you're not ready for that, maybe it's not Karoline who's out of step." The room hummed with electricity. The reporter sat rigid, his smirk vanished. Karoline met Trump's gaze and offered a small nod, a quiet thank you carrying weight. As the reporters dispersed and the moment faded, Trump turned to Karoline, his voice dropping softer, almost playful. "You don't need me swinging for you, you know that," he said with a tease. "But I couldn't let that one slide without knocking him down a peg." Karoline chuckled, her tone warm. "I think you did more than that." "Thank you, I mean it." Trump brushed it off. "Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing. You've got the smarts, the drive, and trust me, that beats all the experience in the world." She smiled again, and just like that, the clash's tension dissolved, leaving one clear reality in its wake. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just standing her ground. She was staking her claim,